right, good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to Bonfire Church, brought to you by Midnight Ministry. I'm Pastor Will.
And I'm Pastor Pete.
All right, and today we're continuing, of course, in our Bible study, our expository Bible study of the Book of James, and we are coming close to being finished.
Which means we've got to start talking about what's next.
Yeah, we should have probably.
What season 6 hold?
Ooh, I don't know.
I'm looking at the season of life you and I are in. What do you think about Nehemiah?
Nehemiah, that sounds good. I haven't studied Nehemiah in a long time. I mean, I've done some topical type of stuff, but nothing
leadership,
nothing deep dive. Yeah,
leadership lessons.
Nehemiah might be a good transition.
I think we should.
Okay.
So we could debate it more, talk about it some more, but just some ideas of where we should go to next. I think we've done New Testament a lot, and I think oftentimes ministers, pastors, whatever, I do it.
Yeah.
We can get caught up in the Old Testament and the New Testament, and
That's
sometimes stay away from the Old.
You know, I've recently started thinking about it like this. When the apostles were going around, before they wrote these the New Testament documents that we have, what were they preaching? There's a lot of as it was written. You have heard it said
from the Old Testament.
They're preaching the Old Testament, and we kind of tend to forget there's even an Old Testament there because now we're under a new covenant. The Old Testament is no longer. But wait, the New Testament can't be viewed by itself. It has to be viewed through the lens of the Old Testament.
And it's always the same thing. Scripture interprets Scripture.
Right.
We have to look at the Old Testament through the lens of the New Testament. We want to look at the New Testament through the lens of the Old Testament. So they both have their equal weight. Now, absolutely, the new covenant that we're under the blood of Jesus Christ is what gives us the victory, is what gives us our salvation. So there's absolutely enough to celebrate that, but we have to look at what brought us to that point. We have to see everything that brought us to the point of God coming down himself and making the correction, right?
Yeah.
So
otherwise, the New Testament without the Old Testament has no context.
Right.
You really can't understand it.
Because especially when Jesus, have you not ever read?
Yeah.
Well, where would I read that from? The first half.
Yeah, there's some old scrolls you might want to go reference. Some
older scrolls to look at. But tonight we're going to continue with James, and we're closing in on those last couple of, like you talked about, we're closing on the last chapter.
Yeah.
Between trying to finish them up between tonight and tomorrow, tonight and next week.
Yeah.
Is finish up the last 20 verses of the book.
As you go, you're getting ready to read the section that we're going to talk about tonight. As you go to read that, I want to remind us and remind our readers, who is James talking to? And remember back to the very beginning, verse 1 of chapter 1, where he talks about the Jewish folks in dispersion, those who are already believers, those who are within the covenant. And I know we had some differences in translation. There was some that said that it could be the actual apostles themselves that are going out. But the primary focus is he is talking about believers.
Yeah.
He's talking to people who already have a relationship. And
what's interesting about the book of James is that it's on my list. You know, anytime I have a new believer that asks, where do I need to read? I always tell them the same thing. Start with John.
Yep.
Then go to Romans. Then do Luke, Acts, and then go to James.
Yeah.
To read
that gives
the gospel,
a lot of different context.
Read the gospel, learn how to defend the gospel, learn how people who defended the gospel, how they lived, in the Luke, Acts combo.
How they do church.
And then James is a simple, this is how we act as believers.
It's now what?
This is what this is the practical way we follow him.
Yeah, exactly.
These are the practical ways we do it.
Yeah, but I wanted to draw our attention to that because even as you begin in the verses, you're going to be saying some things, and it could, through a Christian's lens, through our own views, we may look at this and go, "Rich people suck," and that's not what he's talking about. He's not talking about the 1%. He's talking about those within the body who have a certain perspective, shall we say? So, if you would.
So I'm going to be reading verses 1 through 10 from the book of James, from the 5th chapter of the book of James. I'm reading from the English Standard Version, starting with verse 1 of chapter 5. Come now, you rich, weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you. Your riches have rotted, and garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver have corroded, and the corrosion will be evidence against you, and will eat your flesh like fire. You have laid up treasure in the last days. Behold, the wages of your labors who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, are crying out against you, and the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. You have lived on the earth in luxury and in self-indulgence. You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the righteous person. He does not resist you. Verse 7 says, Be patient, therefore, brothers, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruits of the earth, being patient about it until he receives the early and the late rains. You also be patient, establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand. Do not grumble against one another. I feel like that's a theme in this book.
Yeah.
Brothers, so that you may not be judged. Behold, the judge is standing at the door. As an example of suffering and patience, brothers, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably one of the most piercing sections of this letter. James is now launching into the denunciation of the sins of the rich.
Mm-hmm.
And
who are the rich in this case? Because we talked about it briefly in the description of the verse. But who are the rich? I don't want us to come across as being interpreted as saying that those who are wealthy, those who have a lot in their pocket, that is what James is talking about. Get rid of all that. Sell everything you own and give it to the poor. Yeah. We saw a lot of people do that very recently. There was and I'm sure our listeners probably are aware that there was a prophecy, I shall say, of the rapture being on September 23rd. There was this prophecy, this prophetic guy who comes out and says, "Oh, it's this date." Well, it's been said that it's this date for years and years and years now, and everyone's wrong because even Jesus said, "No one knows the time, the date of the hour. Not even the angels know.
Yeah,
it's only the Father knows." So anybody who's saying it's this day, anyway, I digress. Yeah, we're not talking about those just because you have a little bit of wealth. It's what are you doing with your wealth? Where are you storing your wealth?
It's always a matter of the heart.
Yeah, where's your heart? Where's your priorities?
Because really what he's crying out against here is the failure of the rich to use their money to alleviate the human need, to alleviate another person's pain. So it's not a matter of finances as much as it's a matter of the heart.
Right.
And when we do things like that, when we say, my money, we say I'm not going to give my money to alleviate their need or to eliminate their need or to get rid of their pain. I'm not going to do that. When we actually do that, we're kind of saying that my money is more important than you.
Here's a practical application. If you have excess wealth and let's do it in two different ways. You have a person on the street who's homeless, and you think, I better give them money because that's what God would want me to do, and so I give them money. But I didn't give them money because I want to. I gave them money because God would want me to.
Yeah.
Right. And then flip that around another way and say, I don't give money to the bum on the corner because he's a bum. Why would I give money to somebody who, if you do not work, you shall not eat? Both of those have a poor heart posture from two opposite perspectives. Yeah. One gave and one did not. It doesn't matter whether you gave or not. It's where your heart was when you gave. If you see a person on the street corner and you give because in your heart you say, to those who were in need you gave, to those who were hungry you fed, to those who were naked you clothed, to the least of these you've done unto me, my brothers and sisters. If that's going through your mind, now your heart's in the right place.
Right.
So whether you have the excess or not is not the point.
And I think that's what James is talking about here when he comes out, because he comes out in that first verse with, "Come now, you rich." What's the next word? Weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you. Now, here's why would I be miserable if I'm rich? Let's look at those people that are rich. And is the ones that experience joy, the ones that experience happiness, is it because of the money?
Mm-mm.
Never.
There's a saying: you can't buy money can't buy you happiness,
No.
but it can buy you a boat.
Which is basically the same
It's
thing.
basically, yeah, no, not it's not though.
But James is calling for them to almost be in a position here of having remorse.
Right.
But
Because when you're done,
well, and I think what that heart is a heart of, I have this, and
mm-hmm.
there's other people who need it, and
Yeah.
I don't have the know-how to distribute. Like I can't get it out fast enough. I can't help enough.
Well, I feel like at the end of the day, right? And you're standing before the pearly gates, or maybe you're even just on your last breath, right? You're
Right.
on death's bed, and you look around and go, "I have all of this. Woe to me, because I have all of this left.
Yeah.
What am I going to do with it?" I think there was a parable Jesus talked about storing your wealth in places where your neighbor is, man sowed in his fields and
Yeah.
stacked his barn and had all of this excess, and then he was taken to heaven. Well, he died. The excess in his barn went to waste because he had it and didn't give it away.
And I'm looking for the one on the talents, the one where he gave 5 talents and 10 talents and 1 talent.
Matthew,
And
I don't remember.
And I really look at this because I think when James is speaking to them, he's talking to them in a way because he knows that soon enough they're going to meet God as well. But when they meet God, they're going to be filled with shame and remorse. Why? Because they have not been faithful stewards.
Because they buried all their talent.
They took their talent, and instead of using it like God planned,
investing it in the kingdom,
they put it in their pocket. They dug it in a hole because they knew, you were over the what was it? Not a harsh man, but I forget how Jesus worded it in the parable.
Mm-hmm.
But what he's talking about here is the weeping and the howling is missed opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Missed opportunities to share something that we couldn't have anyway.
Yeah.
Giving away something that we can't keep.
Yeah. All the woulda, coulda, shouldas.
Right. We're asked to give away something that we can't keep anyway. But we're so. And he goes on to say, I think when he talks about wailing and crying, he's talking about that they would actually mourn when their sin was revealed to them. Because oftentimes I think we're blind to our own sin of covetousness. I'd rather have it than you. Right. Is that not a form of covetousness?
Yeah. What if I need it later?
Well, I would rather have it than you have it. Yeah. When you need it, I would rather have it in my garage and not need it than you have it when you need it. Is that in itself not covetousness?
Yeah. And
selfishness? The conviction that they would be feeling during that time.
Right.
And it's not only that, because you keep in mind when they're standing before God at that point in time, it's too late.
Yeah.
It's too late. That's literally money that's gone. Like it's just gone.
Right.
Like they can never go back, and they can't go back and give it to the poor. They can't go back and feed the poor. And what's even greater by this is he talks about you should whine, wail and howl, but he goes on in verse 2 to say your riches. Your riches have rotted. And that's what I mean by they go to waste.
Yeah.
Because in reality, if I die, if I've got millions of dollars in the bank and I'm just building up for myself more and more, like the parable that Jesus talks about where the man builds another barn.
Yep.
And the next day, my life is required of me. Everything that I have on this earth, everything that we possess is temporary.
Yep.
It's destroyed by moths. It's destroyed by corrosion. It's destroyed by rust.
It reminds me of the story of the rich man and Lazarus.
Right. Yeah.
And how the rich man passed by this guy at his gates every single day, and never had any compassion on him. And on the day of judgment, when he was called in to face the music, he's screaming out, send Lazarus and touch his pinky into the water and just give me a drop to quench the fire on my tongue. And at this point, the rich man says, send someone to my family so that they might know the truth.
Yeah.
No. You know the truth. It's right here in black and white, brothers and sisters. You better read it because you don't have the opportunity to come back from where you may be going in order
Nobody's
to
coming
share
back
the word.
to warn you.
Nope.
This is the warning.
This is your warning.
This is
Yeah,
the
this
warning.
is the pinky with the water on it.
And I want to talk about this for a second. You mentioned this too, but I want to make sure we do address a little in depth, a little bit, that the Bible does not say that it is a sin to be rich.
No.
For instance, a person may inherit a fortune. They may win a lottery, and certainly he's not committed a sin by becoming rich.
Right.
And it does what the Bible does teach, that it is wrong for us to hoard those riches.
Yeah.
And the Lord actually expressly forbade that the hoarding of wealth. In Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 through 21, I got it on my notes here. It says, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasure on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourself treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, where thieves do not break in and steal."
Yeah.
And that last part of that, for where your treasure is, and this is going to wrap all about a nice little bow. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also.
Yeah.
And that's what James is speaking to. He speaks of the wealth here in four different forms. He speaks of it in the idea of the riches. He speaks of it in the garments that they wear, the gold and the silver. And in Bible times, wealth was generally in the form of like grain, oil, and other produce, clothing, gold, silver. But when he says your riches are corrupted, he means that the grain has become wormy and the oil has become rancid. And that means that what has happened is all of these things that they have hoarded are now spoiled.
Right.
They're good for no one. And that's where I think James is speaking to here is when we hoard those things, we're only making our eternity miserable, and we're making this life here miserable for somebody else. We're not using the wealth, the gifts, the things that God gave us to be a blessing.
Right.
And that's where,
to drive your point home, there's a popular saying, I know you've heard it too, money is the root of all evil. And that is not true.
Right.
It is the love of money that is the root of all evil. Because we, as humans, we take things out of context, which is why we are so adamant about applying proper context, that we cling on to something like that. Money is the root of all evil. And then we start talking about those who have extra money as being evil.
Yeah.
Well, that's not the case at all. It is the love of money. Where is your heart? So
exactly,
that's what James is really boiling down.
And
to.
I want to hang out here for a second on the garments for two.
Okay.
He says your garments are moth-eaten. When do garments get eaten by moths?
When they're hung in a closet, not used.
Bingo. You see, it doesn't happen when clothing is in regular use.
Right.
But when a closet is so crowded with clothing that they're used infrequently, once a month or once every 6 months, or my mom used to have a mink coat that she wore twice a year, I think. But those are subject to moth damage. And that's what he's talking about here. He's not talking about it's bad for you to have clothes. It's bad for you to have so many clothes that they're just hanging up in your closet. Because you know as well as I do, it takes 6 or 7 months for the moths to get in there. And so we're talking about an outfit that hasn't moved in 6 or 7 months. So he's not saying it's wrong to have a lot of clothes.
Yeah.
He's saying we shouldn't have so much that what we have isn't being used.
Yeah. Let's put it in a different way, because a lot of people nowadays, moths aren't really a big thing, because we live in enclosed structures now. Moths in a closet aren't necessarily a big deal.
I can still smell mothballs though.
Right. But years ago, that was a thing. Now let's put it into a different context. Is those who, instead of having moth-eaten clothes, you have clothes that no longer fit you.
Yeah.
It's hung in your closet so long that your body style has changed, and no longer can you fit.
Now you're getting personal.
Well, I am getting personal because I'm talking to me right now. I've got suits in my closet that no longer fit me, yet I've got them there. And we've both Bethany and I have clothes that we've kept from high school that used to fit, and maybe one day will fit again.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Most of mine are gone.
Pal.
Most of mine are gone. But anyway, there are clothes that we have kept, we've hung on to because we love the clothes, but we can't wear them anymore. They're no good to anyone hanging in my closet.
See, that can also speak to the amount of food that we buy and eat.
It is. That's a whole different. That's a whole different
That's a whole
topic.
different episode.
That's a different episode.
We are very aware, and we're working on the issues
Yeah.
of our weight. So don't.
It's not a. It's
Be
not
nice.
It's not a gluttony issue as much as it is a gluttony issue. So I do love my food.
It's white gluttony, like white lies.
Yeah, little white gluttony.
All right, so verse 3. We're gonna move on.
Yeah, please.
Verse 3 says, "Your gold and silver have corroded, and their corrosion will be evidence against you, and will eat your flesh like fire. You have laid up treasure in the last days." That's to know that everything. Imagine for a second that everything that God blessed you with financially on this earth.
Yeah.
Imagine if. So let me tell you the thing my dad used to do when I was younger. We would go out to eat, and he would tell us, "Order whatever you want, but you're going to pay me for what you don't eat." So he would look at that plate, $12 plate. I ate half of it. I owe him $6, and he would make me pay him $6. Now imagine if we get to heaven and we find out all that money that you had that you didn't spend.
Yeah, you owe me.
You owe me. All that money was supposed to go to the poor, the needy, and those other, and you didn't use it that way.
Right.
So now you owe me. So, and I'm not saying that that's the way God is. It's not. It's probably not.
But I will say there is a portion of that to be true, which is the more you invest in the kingdom, the more you are likely to be invested in. You know, you mentioned the parable of the talents. When the master came back, he rewarded each of them who invested with more. And if we're investing properly into the kingdom, we are going to be blessed with more. We should be. So,
but what they did here is instead of putting their money to work, and that's what happened when we talk about money corroding, is the same thing we talked about with the moth eating. Money that's being used is not going to corrode and rust. It's being moved from here to there. It's the ones where the money sits in a bowl, or it sits in a. I have one of those water bottles that I use, the big tall water.
I've
bottle
got one of those. Yeah,
that you start filling.
The Culligan things. Yeah,
but it's when we store it that way that it begins to tarnish, and it begins to become discolored, and in lack of a way to put it, it begins to corrode. It begins to rust and to dissolve away, basically. But instead of putting their money to work for them, doing things like feeding the hungry, clothing those without clothing, providing medicine for the sick, spreading the gospel. What was happening is the rich were taking that money and saying, "You know what? I'm going to hold on to this for a rainy day. I want to hold on to this for a rainy day." And it benefits no one.
I think it's more than that, though. I don't think it's just holding on to it for a rainy day, because there's nothing wrong with doing investments, right? Investing in your future, ensuring that you have done your due diligence, so that when you are of retirement age, or no longer able to draw an income, then you have something to fall back on. There's nothing wrong with that, because it ensures that you don't become a draw later. So what I would suggest are things like annuities. It's something that's going to pay you, but it also, upon your death, it reverts to some kind of a charitable annuity for. There's a lot of them out there, like 90.1. I can't remember what the name of it is.
AFR.
AFR. They have an AFR annuity, which goes towards ministry work, and it helps out missionaries and things like that. So, or you have one for the church. You have one that upon my death, my estate goes to my local church, and it goes to help the community that way.
So we're about to go way off topic.
Okay.
I disagree.
Okay.
I disagree partially.
This happens more than you guys think, by the way.
I disagree because I think there's an element of, when we're disciples for Christ, there's got to be an element of leaving it all on the field. Now, back up a little bit. Do I have life insurance so that when I'm gone, there's something to take care of my family? Absolutely.
Right.
Do I have things in place so that when I do pass away, are my family's going to be taken care of? Yes. But I'm sorry if you were to hand me a check in this hand, and I see somebody in need in this hand, there's very little hesitation between.
I agree with that.
And I say that because I'm of the mindset we cannot take it with us, and I feel like that there's going to be a lot of us in heaven that didn't leave it all on the field, that are going to get to heaven and not. we read in Revelation where it's either hot or cold. If you're lukewarm, he's going to spew you out of his mouth. Well, if I'm keeping things here to make sure I'm covered for a rainy day, I've removed trust from God and placed it in myself. Again, this is the way I see it.
Sure.
I've taken my trust away from God and I've placed it in my bank.
Right.
And there's nowhere more dangerous to be
than a bank. Teasing. Sorry. Go ahead.
But I feel like the idea of doing all, and I know there's wise ways to steward our money. There's wiser ways than I do it. I know that. But I'm one of those that my mentality even comes with financially. I usually don't have a lot left over at the end of the month because normally, if I see something and I need it, I buy it. I'm absolutely one of those. I try to restrict myself by putting the money in a different account, so I have to transfer it.
Right. You've got some checks and balances in place.
Things in place to keep me from being a spontaneous buyer. So I absolutely do spend things on me and my family.
Right.
And I do have things for them when I'm gone. But I'm a firm believer in that sometimes we've got to leave it all in the field. And if we don't, I feel like I don't want to stand before God and go, I had $100,000 more I could have put into this.
Right.
I had $1 million in this account over here that I could have. There's so much that I did not do for eternity.
Yes. And
I'm not saying that when we win a lottery, we automatically have to give it to a church. No, we got to be wise with that. And we've got to pray for discernment in those times. And that's probably why the Lord hasn't given me $1 million yet, because he knows I'm going to probably hand it to the first church that walks up. Because it's just this, I want to leave it all on the field. I want to get to heaven and have nothing of my flesh left,
right?
Because I've used it all. Like I want to be one of those old men that, like, oh man, he's had a good life, because I'm wasting away because I've used it all. I brought it all. I put it all in the field, and that's where I feel like sometimes we have to be. Now, again, for those of you out there that save money and are frugal in that way and have nest eggs and things like that, I am not saying that these things are sinful. They're not.
Of course, but what is the parable end with there, with the last person who was gotten in trouble for burying his talent? The master comes back and says, "Would that you would have at least put it in the bank. At least invested a little, so I get a little bit back."
An investment,
yeah.
So we want to invest it, absolutely, but I do agree, but I disagree. I think we have to prepare for our families.
Yeah,
because the Bible tells us if you don't, those man who doesn't feed his own family, especially those of his own household, is worse than an unbeliever.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure my family's cared for. But at the end of the day, if I've got to skip 3 cups of coffee today, but I can feed a family,
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with
sure.
That. That's not.
It's a matter of being good stewards of what you've been allotted.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying go out there and create $1 million annuity, but what do you need to get by?
Yeah.
What is it that you need to pay your bills?
Yeah.
Adjust for that, and then you have all of this left over to put on the field.
Right. But we're gonna have to keep moving because we're down to the last 15 minutes. We're
already. Goodness gracious. Okay.
Verse 4 says, "Behold the wages of the laborers who mowed." Did you have more on the other one?
No. Okay. I have something on verse 4.
Behold the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, are crying out against you.
Yeah.
And the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. I'm going to tell you one place I don't want to be. I never want to be in someone's complaint prayer to God.
Oh.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Because when it gets to that point where it reaches the ears of the Lord of hosts, I don't want to be in. I don't want to be in that element of wrath, of God's wrath. I don't want to be there.
Right. So what I wanted to do, and I won't do it now because we don't have a whole lot of time, but I was going to read Matthew 20.
You go for it.
Well, I can paraphrase, so I can save us a little bit of time in that. We're talking about, behold, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud. So you are paying someone to do something, yet you defraud them of their entire paycheck because you're greedy, right? So I like to go to an opposite. This is what not to do. Let's go to an opposite, what to do, right? So if you go to Matthew 20, we're talking about the laborers in the field, and the master of the field comes along, and he offers a talent for a day's labor to the first person who he comes to. He says, I need a laborer. It's early in the morning. I pay a talent a day for labor. And the man agrees. He comes to the field. He starts to work. About halfway through the day, he says, I'm going to need another guy. He goes back to the place offers another guy. He says, hey, I pay a day's wages as a talent if you come and work in the field. He comes, he works in the field. About 3/4 of the day goes by. He says, man, I need another guy. Goes back out, says to the third man, hey, I need another worker. I pay a talent a day. Will you come work in my field? He comes, he finishes working. At the end of the day, all three of them stand there. And they put their hand out, and the master comes along and he puts a talent in each one of their hands. Now, James is talking about fraud as in taking away from someone who should have earned more by what you said.
Right.
The first man who got the one talent complained from the perspective of, you defrauded me. He says, I earned, should be, twice what the man at the end worked, or 3 times as much as the man at the end worked, because I worked 3 times as hard. Mm-hmm. That was not the deal. Instead, look at it from the perspective of the landowner who says, I pay a talent a day. I'm being more generous with the second man because he didn't work as much, but I still honored a talent a day. And then the third man came along, I still honored a talent a day. Should he have cut that wage down, or should he have had the generous heart that James is talking about, those who are defrauding the people should have had?
So I want to bring this to a little bit more of a real level, because you don't see places very often where in today's age where you don't get paid for a job.
Right.
But in addition to the sin of paying inadequate wages, James could very easily have used things like falsifying income tax documents, cheating on weights and measures, bribing inspectors or local officials, false advertising, falsifying expense reports. So there's
monopoly of
several
goods and
different
services.
ways where, if we honestly look at our daily dealings, we've got to examine those. As believers, we've got to examine those to make sure, and I'll even throw this one out there for those Walmart shoppers, the one that go to the self-checkout and like, well, and they intentionally don't scan an item because they're like, I don't work here.
Yeah, I've never been trained.
That falls into that cheating on weights and measures.
You want to pay me $3.14 an hour? I'll do my own. Yeah, I've heard
but
that.
it goes further than that. I think as when we look at how does this apply to me, we've got to look at, am I being just? Am I being right in all of my dealings, in all of my business dealings, in my taxes?
Yeah.
And so on and so forth.
What it always boils down to is, do you do the right thing even when no one's looking?
Right. That integrity.
Yep.
Verse 5, you have lived on earth in luxury and in self-indulgence. You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter. So now he's talking about luxurious living.
Yeah. Living high on the hog.
Right. Things like expensive jewelry, mink coats, elegant clothing, foods that I can't even pronounce, homes that why are they shaped that way? I don't know. But all of these things that they could squander their wealth on their self and leave others desperately in need.
Mm-hmm.
And to bring it down to our own day, how can we justify the affluence and extravagance of the church and the Christian people? There are churches out there that have nicer sound systems than nightclubs. There are churches out there that and there's nothing against all that, but sometimes I think we take away from the spiritual of it and we make it into a entertainment. Make it more entertainment.
It goes back again to, where is the heart? Is it, do you do the things that you're doing in order to proclaim the gospel louder?
Yeah.
If you stand on a corner and preach the word alone, then you reach what you can reach with your voice. If you then invest in a boombox system or whatever, a projection of some kind,
screen,
you can hear, more people can hear you. If then you build a building and people come in, you can amplify the sound off the walls and more people can hear you.
Right.
So, or are you going, these people can provide an income and line my pockets, so I need more people inside of my quote unquote congregation, instead of the actual word of in my gentleman's club or whatever,
right?
My club atmosphere. Where is your heart in this? Is it for the Lord or is it for yourself?
Well, I want us to look at the reality of the reality of there are thousands that daily die of starvation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just physical starvation. Sometimes it's the spiritual starvation. But over half the world's population has never even heard of Jesus Christ. So in a world like that, where you have other people starving and you have people that have never heard about this life-saving message of eternity, how in that world can you justify as a believer sports cars, limousines,
Mm-hmm.
speedboats, mansions?
Mm-hmm.
How can you justify owning all of those possessions while someone else is dying of starvation?
Like the popular TV evangelist who says that God blessed him with his own private jet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Expensive hotels,
It's,
high-class restaurants,
gosh.
self-indulgence, all self-indulgence. The
Big
clear
pearly
teaching,
white teeth. Watch
yeah,
out for them.
yeah. Not calling any names here.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
You have condemned and murdered the righteous person. He does not resist you.
it should honestly, if we think about it instinctually as a Christian, our compassion, the compassion for others, should tell us that it's wrong
Mm-hmm.
to live in luxury and the ease of life as long as there is a single soul out there that has not heard the gospel. But we've lost that vision.
Mm-hmm.
We've lost that look. Goes on to verse 6 to say, you have condemned and murdered the righteous person. He does not resist you. Now, the final charge against the rich is that they condemned and murdered the just. And some think that this might be Jesus, the righteous one that they're talking about. However, his death was brought about by religious rather than the rich.
Right. Yeah.
It's probably best to think that of the just as representing innocent people in general.
Right. And just to give some perspective, I guess my perspective then would be, look at what he's saying here. James is talking to, and to go back again, to these Jewish people in dispersion. He's talking to, in this case, the rich people. He's preaching a message.
Yeah.
Right. He is up in his pulpit, giving a message to all of the people who are listening, specifically targeting this issue. And then he comes on with, you have condemned and murdered the righteous person. He does not resist you. Now, this individual who he's talking to, look to your left and to your right. The people around you in your pews.
Yeah.
This is who you're hurting by keeping all that God has blessed you with selfishly.
Yeah.
So I feel like he is, and he not to go too far, but in verse 7 he says, "Patience, therefore, brothers, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits the precious fruit." So all of that he's saying, and the rest of you.
Before we jump into verse 7, really quick,
Yeah.
I want to back up just one thing. I find it interesting that it says, you have condemned and murdered the righteous person.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they're not actually going out and killing them.
No.
It's interesting here that the word that James uses, murder, but the murder he's talking about is that maybe they haven't killed him directly, but they've been overworking him and underpaying them.
Right.
And by doing that, the innocent offer no resistance. They continue on.
Right.
But
they have no choice.
But James refers to, we have it referred to in Scripture as murder.
Right.
That's a murder to do that.
Well, and to go back, Jesus talks about it too. To hate your brother is to commit murder in your heart.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing James is talking about here. You have no regard for your fellow man.
Mm-hmm.
You have no concern, no compassion for what they're going through. You're just lining your own pockets and get more and more and more and more and more, and not thinking about those who you could be impacting in a positive way, but instead you're impacting them in a negative way. Why are you impacting them in a negative way? Because you're not thinking about them. You have no compassion for them. You have no love for them. You do not love your neighbor. Therefore, the love of the Lord is not in you.
Right. Verse 7, be patient, therefore, brothers, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, being patient about it until he receives the early and the late rains. Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned something on that verse a minute ago before we went back.
Well, I was just talking about how it appears that James is talking to an overarching audience about certain issues, and the ones that James is talking about are present in the conversation. Yeah. So it is a group of, let's say, a group of Christians And in that group of Christians, there are those who are in error.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's kind of his target.
It's interesting. He talks about being patient here and that patience. The motive for that patience is for the coming of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
But then he brings up the farmer to illustrate this.
Yeah.
And as he talks about the farmer, and you think about you watching grass grow.
Mm-hmm.
And the farmer illustrates the need for patience. He does not reap on the same day that he plants. It's not the immediate like we get from Google, right? He has to have that patience because he's not going to plant and reap the same day. Rather, it's a long time of waiting. You may not get your first piece of fruit for several months.
Mm-hmm.
There first come an early rain, which will cause the seed to germinate, and at the end of the season, a latter rain to bring the crop to full succession.
Yeah, I was going to point that out. Is that there was in the process of growing, especially in this region, because of how dry and arid it was.
Yeah.
You had to time it just right, and it was. Jesus talks about preparing the fields,
right?
And this is one of those illustrations that he would get to, is that the land is dry and arid,
yeah.
But even still, you prepare the land and you plant your seed. It's those who are, have you heard? There are two farmers, both of who prays for rain.
Yeah.
The one who is faithful is the one that goes out and sows.
Prepares the field. Yeah.
Yeah, he goes out and does the work. Not just waiting for the rain, but he
Yeah.
does the work knowing there's going to be rain.
Right. And some see this reference to the early and latter rains as a promise of the blessings of Pentecost, which we've seen
Yeah.
at the beginning of the church age, and they believe it's going to be repeated again before the Lord's return.
Mm-hmm.
But the overall note of the New Testament here seems to discourage that type of expectation. But however, there is nothing to forbid our looking for a faithful remnant of believers on fire for God and bent toward evangelizing our world.
Mm-hmm.
And what better way to welcome? I mean, like we always tell people, when is Jesus coming back? I don't know. I'm not on the planning committee.
Right.
I'm
just
on the
reception.
I'm the welcoming committee.
Yeah.
What better way to welcome our returning Savior? Verse 8 says, "You also be patient, establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand."
Mm-hmm.
The wrongs on earth will be made right when the Lord returns. And therefore, he goes again. He says we have to be patient like the farmers. And their hearts should be established with the certainty. Like we have to have the certainty. We should almost live a life of anticipation.
Well, yeah.
Of like, is he back today? No, not today. Okay.
Well, we told that,
Right.
the virgins at the gate.
Right,
You've got the 10 virgins at the gate. 5 of them have their lamps run out.
Right, exactly.
And you didn't prepare. That's what it is. You did not stand ready when the judge arrived. He's at the door.
And you're not ready for him.
And you're not ready.
Verse 9, "Do not grumble against one another, brothers, so that you may not be judged. Behold, the judge is standing at the door."
Yeah.
During times of persecution and during times of distress, it is not uncommon for victims to turn on one another.
Mm.
It's a curious twist of human nature that in times of pressure, we build up wrath against the people that we love the most. And we have this warning: do not grumble against one another, brethren, lest you be condemned. This verse has a voice for the servants of the Lord working together under very difficult circumstances.
Right. And go back to verse 6. Mm-hmm. He does not resist you.
Does not resist you. And as that, we can't let that resentment build up. And remember, we talked about this not too long ago when Charlie Kirk was assassinated. We can let that resentment build up,
mm-hmm.
and it begins to establish hate. And when that happens, we have the same warning that the very first murderer in the Bible ever got. Sin is crouching at the door.
Yeah. And
he gets the same warning there to be wary of it, of the sin crouching at the door. Mm-hmm. And after all, the judge is already at the door. God already knows what we think. We're out of time, but we'll keep going.
Yeah.
Soon we will stand before the judgment seat of Christ to give an account. We should not judge lest we be judged. At verse 10, "As an example of suffering and patience, brothers, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord." Now he uses the Old Testament prophets here as an example of suffering and patience.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's look at a few of those. Just going off the top of my head, we have Jeremiah, the wailing prophet.
Yep.
Elijah, wasn't Elijah the one that was fed by ravens?
Yeah.
Wanted to just die. That one. There's
a
quite a bit.
stream and a snack, some shade. It's all,
a snack and a nap is all you needed.
Yeah. And
Romans,
Jesus, the suffering servant.
Right. Well, here's the thing about Romans 5:3 says that tribulation produces perseverance.
Absolutely.
Tribulation produces perseverance. It's the troubles, it's the valleys where the growth happens.
I was going to say, do you remember Psalm 23? And it talks about the valleys. That's where the grass grows.
Yeah.
If you're too high in elevation, it's too cold. You're not really getting the rain. Things are not growing. It's rocky. It's dry. It's arid. The mountaintop is a nice place to be for the view, but your growth happens in the valley. That's where you get fed. That's where the Lord is walking you through those things. And sometimes we get to the mountaintop and forget how we got there.
Very much so. I do have a few closing thoughts here, if you don't want me zipping through those really quick. We notice here that James pulls no punches. He stands in the marketplace of faith and strikes at the complacency that hides behind our comfort. He talks about the hoarded grain, the moth-eaten garments, the tarnished gold, and these are not simply bad investments. They are the evidence of a heart that has misplaced its trust, its mercy, and its mission. The corrosion of our treasure will not be merely a loss of assets. It will accuse you on the day of God when he unpacks the motive. As we stand before God and he unpacks the motives of our life, all of this will get unwrapped. If you're among those who've been blessed with wealth, influence, and power, do not let these verses be a distant rebuke. It's not meant to be a rebuke as much as it is, hey, this is what God meant. This is a summons to examine how your resources have lived. Have they fed the hungry, defended the weak, paid the just wage, and advanced the gospel? Or have they been insulated behind luxury while others suffered? James insists that God hears the cries of those cheated and crushed. Wealth misused is not neutral. It is a testimony against you. If you are among the oppressed, James's word to you is a fierce, consoling, endure with patient resolve. The farmer waits through seasons of uncertainty for harvest. So must you wait with faith. Your endurance is not passive resignation, but a steadfast trust in the coming judge who sees and will set the matters right. Let patience shape your character, not bitterness. A message to the church: do not turn inward. And I say this all the time. A church that turns inward is a church that's headed for the end. We're not far from closing our doors. Do not turn inward. Do not let the complaint and faction fracture the body while the judge stands at the door. The Christian community must be a place of mutual tenderness and courageous justice, where wages are paid, the vulnerable defended, and the treasure stewarded for kingdom fruit. We will be judged by how we treated the least of these, like you said earlier, and by whether our lives proclaim the gospel by both word and deed. So here's the challenge. Name one concrete change that you can make this week that addresses James's indictment. Where's a better place that I can put my money? If you're rich, identify one luxury, one habit that you have, one single luxury to redirect toward mercy. A regular gift, an ethical relocation, a worker you advocate for, something, but take something, give up something, and sacrifice that for someone else.
Right.
If you're poor and oppressed, identify the ways you will practice righteous patience and cultivate hope in the promises of God. As a congregation, identify one structural change that we can implement so our wealth and work reflect Christ's justice. As a church, we want our church to reflect Christ's mission and what Christ did. We should not be found hoarding the Lord's mercy, stealing the laborer's wage, or nursing quiet contempt for the afflicted. Instead, be found faithful, generous, just, patient, living now, because like it says in this passage here, the judge is at the door. That's all I've got.
All right. I'm going to close this in prayer. Before I do, I wanted to read Psalm 51, just the first 4 verses there.
Have mercy on me.
Have mercy on me, O Lord. According to your steadfast love, according to your abundant mercy, blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity and cleanse me of my sin. For I know my transgression, and my sin is ever before me. Against you, you only have I sinned, and done what is evil in your sight, so that you might be justified in your words and blameless in your judgment. Behold, I was brought forth in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. Behold, you delight in truth, the inward being, and you teach me wisdom in the secret heart. No, I did a couple extra there. I went through verse 6, but in that,
by far, I think that is a psalm we as believers can read every day because we sin every day.
Absolutely.
We need his saving grace and his saving mercy every day.
Yeah.
So Psalm 51 is one we could do every day. Do you want to close this in prayer?
Yeah, let's do that. Father God, we remember and we reflect on the words of James here today. Where is your heart? Where is our heart? Father, help us to see any error that we may have. If our heart is not for you and you alone, Father, forgive us of our sins. Cleanse us of all unrighteousness and create in us a new and pure heart, so that we see the things that you see from your perspective. We hear the things that you hear from your ears. Father, give us the heart to see your people and treat them accordingly to how you would have them be treated. Help us to not just ignore all of those around us while hoarding more for ourselves. Father, allow us to see your people how you see them. Pure and holy, perfectly and wonderfully made, and worth dying for. We ask all of this today in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. And remember, don't just keep the faith.
Give it away.